before we get into our actual tier list, we'll kind of take a look at where I have the characters overall ranking up against each other in these 5 metrics: range damage, melee damage, survivability, their ability, and their team perk. These were what I felt like the 5 most important things for the classes. So I really wanted to test them out against each other and see where they ended up. Now for my tier list, they're not going to exactly fall where these overall rankings are, but I do feel like these overall rankings are a very good representation of a non-biased look at all the classes in the game with extensive time, 80 operations at least with every class, relic, max mastery with every weapon. And this is just kind of how I feel like they are stacking up against each other. So when it comes to my tier list, I like different play styles, so I know my tier list could differ from some of these overall rankings and things like that. But if you want like just a fair representation, I really think this is going to give you a really good idea where all the characters are sitting in these aspects of the game. So we will go straight into our A tier, and on our A tier, I have the Vanguard sitting above the Assault class. Now the Vanguard, very strong character, but I feel like he's very average in almost everything besides his team perk is godly. He has one of the strongest team perks in the game. And then with the Assault, their main thing is really their survivability and struggling with contested health. And it's mostly due because their lack of range damage. And that is why they have trouble getting their contested health back. But they do have some perks that help them out, like, non-finisher gun strikes giving you armor and things like that. That's why I still felt like they were a 7. But I do feel like the Assault is still an A tier character. I do have him behind the Vanguard, but I don't think he's B tier. And I think that both of these characters probably could get just a little bit more love, and then they will be popping up in S tier and more on the line with everybody else in the game. But either way, anybody on this list, all these classes are extremely powerful, and anybody who has like any of these classes as a main and that's all they play, they're going to be top tier with any class they pick. So this is just my personal tier list and where I have them sitting. So from A, we're going to go to our S tier characters, and we have the Tactical sitting over the Heavy. So the Heavy, as I said, with the overall numbers, 8.2, but it's mostly just because of his melee damage. Heavy, I really like him, man. Massive range damage, and not to mention, he can pick any one of his 3 weapons and just pop into a random queue and do at least 20k damage with any one of them. So that's why I really enjoy using the Heavy. And his survivability, not great, but his weapons are so strong that he can fill his contested health up pretty good. So that's why his is still an 8. And the same thing with the Tactical. He really doesn't have any much survivability either, like perk-wise, but his damage is so high that he can usually stay alive pretty good. And then just team perk for the Heavy, very, very good. Ammunition. And then also he has an awesome team perk that you revive your teammates and they come back with 100% health. So very good and lethal right there. And then the Tactical, he's really only lacking in survivability, I would say, and in his team perk is just okay. It's 30% extra contested health. Still a very good team perk. It's not bad by any means, but when you compare it to some of the other team perks in the game, it is more like like a B compared to like an A+ or something. So these are what I have in my S tiers. And then you could already guess it, our 2 God tier characters in the game, which I actually had Bulwark probably above the Tactical and S tier until the Volkite came out, but that increased his range damage enough to put him in a God tier character, because now he can deal with the range with the Volkite. Anything that's out of his, anything that's floating around in the air or anything like that, he can really deal with now. So that's why I have him sitting right behind in my opinion, the strongest class in the game, the Sniper. So the Sniper is literally the hardest and the hardest to level up, I think, but the payoff at the end is extremely gratifying. He has some very good weapons, and his survivability is great, team perks great, ability is great. Just the only thing that is even just average is just his melee damage, and honestly, if you're good enough with the knife, I could easily see you being above average with his melee as well. So very, very strong character. This is personally where I have my tier list sitting at right now with patch 4.5, and I am more interested in hearing about everybody else's tier list and where they have their character sitting, and where you think I was wrong at, right at, and different things like that. Thanks for checking out the video, guys.